you for the first time.
Nice to meet you too, doctor.
Okay, so my name is Ali, and my style is usually to get all of us interacting so that I don't bore you with a lot of slides. If you can see from the course outline, we have 9 themes, which we will try to do in 7 meetings. Is that correct? I am not getting the responses. Are you here?
I am here. I'm one of the students, but I don't know it by heart. And I saw that Lisbeth, her connection is not working. Um, so, and I'm not in the position to check it on my phone. So I cannot answer your question. Sorry.
Please, I didn't get that, but I just want to be sure whether you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm Saskia.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Shahila. I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so can I proceed?
Yeah, yes, I think so.
Great. So I would like to hear briefly what your expectations are for this particular course.
But every time I get thrown out.
Hello?
Yes, every time I get thrown out. I've been thrown out two times already.
You get thrown out of the class?
Yes, but now I'm in it. But just now I was thrown out 2 times in 5 minutes time.
Okay.
Maybe that's what happened with Lisbeth.
Okay.
Yes, I have the same problem. I've been thrown out already 5, 6 times. So we are facing the network nowadays in Ghana is very bad. So, but I hope.
Please, those who are getting thrown out, where is your location? Is it in Ghana, Suriname, or Netherlands?
Yes.
Is it in the Netherlands?
Yes, I'm in Amsterdam.
Okay, and your network is not good?
Yes, but I haven't experienced this before.
Okay, so I was just trying to find out what your expectations are for this particular course that I'll be teaching.
I must say I have been sick since February. I've been so I haven't prepared for this evening, but next time I will. What are my expectations? I like to study this course, but from an African perspective. There's not an Eurocentric perspective. I've studied in Suriname and in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is very Eurocentric, and Suriname is globally and from a how do you say it, a south perspective. But now I would like to study history from an African perspective.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Please, what's your name? Who just spoke? May I know who just finished speaking?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm back in. I was thrown out again, but now I'm back in.
Wow. Then
He's asking your name. Who is speaking?
Saskia Meiland, but I was thrown out again.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes. So can I hear the expectations of the others in the class?
My name is Shaila, and actually my expectations are the ones that were just what the speaker before me said. I enjoy the African perspective, and that's made me do this course. And that is what happened in the first semester, that I had the same information I had in university. I studied political science, but now I got the information from an African point of view, and I found it really interesting and fascinating, and confronting also for me, because I noticed I have a colonial mindset.
Sorry, I wanted to say that the sound is very bad here. I cannot understand.
Yeah, I'm in Ukraine, so it's very hard to speak louder. So sorry, I have to.
I don't think it's not about speaking louder. I think it's just the sound. It's begging. It's that's French. How do you say that in English? It's the sound. It's not clear.
I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to change that. So I think I have to.
I understand that. Okay.
Thank you.
I have left the Zoom scene. I just want to verify whether we are 4 in the class at the moment, including myself, or we are more than that.
On my screen, I'm seeing 5, and I should be the 6th.
Okay. So
on my screen, I'm seeing Ali. That's I think the professor. I see. I see the Bros Institute is 2 times the same.
Okay.
And I'm Saskia Elizabeth and Shahaila.
Professor Ali, good evening, everybody.
Good evening. You are welcome.
Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I jumped in quickly. I just ran out of another meeting, Professor Ali, and I just jumped in quickly to say good evening to everybody and welcome back to the course. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't see anything.
Okay.
Hello.
I can hear you, sir.
May I ask, mevrouw Meiland, hoe gaat het met u?
I didn't hear the last thing you said, please.
No, I was saying something in Dutch to somebody, but you didn't hear me. But I just came in to say hi quickly and to wish you a good start of the course of your block. If there's any questions for me, I'm here.
All right. For the time being, I think I was expecting at least 10 students to join, and it appears we have just about 3 or 4 at the moment. I don't know whether we should go ahead and have the class, or you think there is a better day that we can have it, and then most of the people in the class will be there?
I leave it up to the students to decide that, because what I understand is that the link, the information was shared in the students group. So I leave it up to you guys to decide if you want to continue tonight. Lisbeth.
As for me, I don't have a problem with going on with the class.
Lisbeth, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I think we should continue because it's actually, it will stimulate the other students to join as well. Right now, I'm joined through 2 devices. So I have joined the meeting through Broad Institute as well as under my own name, because my network is very bad. And also the now it's very network, so sometimes I don't even hear it clearly, and I've been trying you because it will stimulate the other students to also join.
And then maybe it would be good if you guys could share a statement in the group that the classes have started, have resumed. So I think you can start, Professor Ali.
All right, thank you so much. So if you noticed from the course outline, and if I may ask this very last one, did everybody get a copy of the course outline? Please, did all the students...
Where was this shared? On email or?
I can't tell, but I shared it with the coordinator. Let me check and be sure with the name. And she said she was going to share with the students.
Oh, you're talking about Cheryl?
Yes, please.
Okay, I don't remember seeing anything from Cheryl.
Wow.
Yes, I don't remember either.
Okay. All right. So maybe if you leave the class, you can communicate with her, but I'll alert her because I sent something for her to review, and she told me that it's fine, and she was going to share it with the students as well. So I presumed the students have already had copies of the course outline before now.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm checking if there's anything in my inbox.
Okay.
No,
so
I haven't seen anything from her. No.
Okay. So if you don't have the course outline, let's start so that I will eventually sort that out after this first lesson. Okay, but just like I was asking of your expectations, if you can hear me, please, at any point in time where you cannot hear me, draw my attention so that I don't speak to the air. Yeah, so that I'll be alerted and then do the right thing. Okay.
In the meantime, I'm gonna log out. I have to drive and I have to navigate through my phone. So I will be in touch with you early next week, Professor Ali.
Okay, sure.
All right.
Take
care, everybody.
Good luck and safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, so the introduction to African history, both for the African in Africa and anybody who is exposed to this course, is to reduce the somewhat apparent negative stereotypical misconception that most people globally, home and abroad, have about the African continent. You see, we may talk about some of those stereotypes along the line, but I am sure you already know some of the myths about Africa, which we may discuss in this very first lessons. And then the course is designed in a manner that will help us correct some of these erroneous perception. And then it is also designed in a manner that will help us recognize some of the achievements and challenges that have shaped the African continent. And then particularly, why is Africa the way it is today? What are some of the historical factors that has shaped its present conditions? So specifically, some of the major themes that we will be looking at are on these slides. We will start with the geography of the continent, the land and the people, the land and the people of the African continent. Who is in Africa and where are they in Africa? Then we will look at economic and social networks in pre-European Africa. This one, I actually want to look at how Africans interacted among themselves economically, the social structure of the African people before Europe saw Africa from around the second half of the 15th century. So before Europe saw Africa, how did Africa interact among themselves economically, and what are some of the social, structural issues that we can highlight so far as the continent is concerned? Life in all facets at very high levels before the Europeans set foot and claimed to have your internet connection is unstable. Wow. Does it mean you can't hear me, please?
Up till now, I can hear you.
Okay, so after looking at the social and economic networks in pre-European Africa, we look at political developments, the emergence of early states in Africa before European advent into the continent. Then we will look at the European adventures into various parts of the continent of Africa that began with commercial relationship in legitimate goods that eventually metamorphosed into colonial rule, and then how Africans, through nationalist activities, fought for independence, the various decolonization processes in the continent. Then the immediate post-colonial African continent was characterized by one-party political systems because most of the nationalists who fought for independence for Africans felt that Africans were lagging behind in all facets. And if Africans were going to follow the footprints of their predecessors in development, they are going to lag behind, and decided to adopt one-party political system for various reasons. This led to military regimes in the immediate post-colonial Africa. And then after a series of military regimes, the continent noticed that it was not helping for obvious reasons, which we will discuss. So there was a new wave of what the Western scholars call new wave of democratization in the continent. And then what the IMF and other donor agencies called good governance in the continent. Then I will finally look at what I called the emergence of the African diaspora. This is just to introduce you something that is not necessarily in line with the trajectory I have taken you through so far, but something that is also worth considering if you want to appreciate some of the historical factors that has made Africa and Africans the way we are today. Please, may I pause to ask whether you can still hear me? Please, can you hear me?
For me, it's okay. I can hear. It's sometimes a bit unclear, but ça va.
Okay. Please, what about the rest? Please, can you hear me?
And my location is Suriname.
I can hear you. I can hear you also, but I'm not always in the position to talk. So you will not hear me respond a lot.
Okay. If I am talking and you can't hear me or you need me to pause to explain something, kindly draw my attention.
All right.
Great.
Yes.
So I want to start talking about the African continent because that's what
Dr.
I'm going
Ali.
to look at. Yes. Someone called. Please, someone called.
Yes, someone said Dr. Ali, but I don't know who.
Okay. Please, do I have to explain something or you need clarity on something or I can go on?
For me, it's okay. You can go on.
Okay. So Africa is the second largest continent in the world after Asia. And I was already talking about some of the myths associated with the continent. People say it is the cradle of man for obvious reasons. Some of the earliest evidence, archaeological excavations and evidence show that man originated from East Africa around the Olduvia Gorge. And I know that claim by Dr. and Mrs. Leakey has been challenged subsequently, but whatever it is, the very earliest evidence of the beginning of man was traced to the Olduvia Gorge in Africa. So it has generally been claimed that Africa is the cradle of man. Other people also think Africa is a Mars jungle. And here, as late as 2005, there was a French graduate student who traveled to Ghana, and he was very surprised. He did not come to meet people on trees. He did not come to meet people almost naked, struggling to survive on wild fruits and wild animals. So somehow there is this stereotypical misconception about a continent that is a Mars jungle. And then other people also think it's a homogeneous group. So you will have, for instance, Africans who may come to Europe or America to study. Maybe an African from Zambia will meet an European or an American in Oxford. Then they study together. Then maybe this non-African meet another African from Ghana another time and then ask, I may want to know from you whether you know Mr. This. He's from Zambia. I studied with him, and since you are coming from Africa, I want to see whether you know him or not. So they think that we are all in one space, very homogeneous, and it is very easy to know each other without any hassle. Yes, I just did this map to show you where Africa is, among the other continents. Yes, where Africa is among the other continents. So the yellow, this thing shows the African map, and then it is surrounded by all the other continents. You can see the Middle East and Europe there. And I particularly want you to take note of the Middle East and Europe because the earliest contact with the outside world was through that upper part of the African continent through the trans-Saharan trade, where Africa made stints through trade to interact with people in the Middle East and Europe, and by extension, to some extent, in Asia. So somehow indirectly, Europe were exposed to things from Africa before. And I'll be talking about this when I'm looking at the advent of Europeans into the African continent. And then you may also be interested in the long distance from Africa to North America and South America that occasioned the transatlantic slave trade, which we shall also be discussing. Okay, this is somehow vaguely the modern map of Africa with the modern nation states after Europe, after the decolonization process in Africa. These are the modern nation states that emerged in the African continent. So someone may ask, how relevant is this course and how relevant is African history to anybody, either African or non-African? I just want to mention that Africa had contributed to global civilization right from the beginning of civilization worldwide. Just a moment. I understand two people are in the waiting room that I have to admit. I don't know whether my co-host is still there and can admit them. Okay, so I have admitted Kenneth. So sorry about that. Those who went out of the class, I hope you are back now. Those who went out of the class, I hope you are back.
Yes, Doc. I have come back. I will try it one more time. I'm now using a different SIM card. So I'm trying to find out if this is any better.
Okay. So please, can I continue?
You can continue. Me personally, I miss most of it because of the bad connection, but I'm fine with if you continue. As long as it's recorded, then I will see it later on in the video.
All right. So I would like to, I was talking about the relevance of this course, the relevance of African history. And I mentioned that from the beginning of global civilization, Africa has been part of it and have contributed significantly to the civilization processes of man. And we can go as far back as 3000 BC, where the Egyptian civilization was at its peak and one of the foremost global civilizations. Okay, it's also important because it helps us to correct most of the stereotypes I've already mentioned at the beginning of this interaction. And then finally, it helps us to understand the historical factors that has brought Africa this far, the historical factors that has occasioned the evolution of the African continent. So it makes this course very, very, very important. But in trying to do this in the continent, when I asked a few of you why you were interested in this course and probably what you were expecting, you spoke about the African perspective. That's fantastic. But you see, in some of the problems, and I'm sure sometime to come, you will complain about how African scholars have not taken over scholarship on Africa, and it is still very much dominated by Eurocentric scholarship. But these are some of the challenges when you try to study the history of the continent. Yes, I mentioned the Egyptian civilization that dates as far back as 3000 BC, where the earliest forms of writing was discovered in the form of hieroglyphics. But writing was not popular in Africa, and most of African history has to be transmitted orally through oral tradition. There is also the non-decipherability of earlier documents because of the multiple languages in the continent. When you get hold of certain sources and in the form of documents, it is not easy to read and then make meanings out of it. Then there is the expensive nature of archaeology that makes it difficult for African scholars to do groundbreaking revelations in that regard. And then most parts of Africa, unlike Europe, where it is very easy to travel from one country to another, even via train, it's inaccessible. So if you want to travel from one place in Africa to another, you may have to do transit outside the African continent before you reach your destination. It is not easy to have access to various parts of the continent, and the weather conditions make most of the documented evidence go bad easily. Then there is this disadvantage associated with the oral tradition, which I said has become the most common form of transmitting African history. That is also problematic because at every point in time, from one generation to the other, the information is diluted somehow. So I now want to quickly go through the geographical stretch of the African continent, which I have divided into 5. North Africa, the Sahara Desert and the Sudanic Belt, the West African Forest Zone, East and Central Africa, and then Southern Africa. And if you remember the African map that I showed earlier on, North Africa is at the top of the African continent, and the people who inhabit that region we call the Maghreb, and they basically consist of Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, and to some extent, the Sudan. I say to some extent because depending on who is looking at it, sometimes you may say Sudan is in East Africa. So let me just quickly make this clear that you should not be so much concerned about these divisions. I am not trying to tell you that maybe this country is in East, Central, or Southern Africa, and then, or this country is in West Africa. What I'm trying to show in this physical geographical stretch is to let you appreciate who is where and what characterized what characterized that specific geographical space. So I'm not doing a very strict dichotomy for you to restrict certain countries to certain spaces. I just want you to understand who is where. That is the goal. And so I've already told you that North Africa is inhabited by the people, the Berbers, the people we call the Berbers or the Maghrebians. The most important thing is that the weather situation in this region is almost like Southern Europe, and the place has been occupied for at least about 10,000 years, from 8,000 BC. They are predominantly pastoralists. When we say pastoralists, they are animal rearers instead of crop producers. So although they produce crops to a less extent, they are predominantly animal rearers. And the reason is that their physical environment is not too conducive for the cultivation of crops as much as it does for the rearing of animals. And then they are predominantly Arabized and Islamic today. From the beginning of the Islamic religion in the 7th century, Muslims dominated or conquered most part of these North African territories and then introduced them to the Islamic culture. But having said this, it is important for us to note that it was non-Muslims who interacted or subdued these North African territories before the 7th century. So very early before the Christian era and at the beginning of the Christian era, various non-Muslim groups had interacted or conquered these North African territories, including the Phoenicians, the Romans, and then lastly, the Germanic Vandals. But Arab culture still dominates the area to the extent that it is almost apparent that about 90% of the people are Arabized and to a very large extent Islamic. And they speak Arabic, they practice Islam, and embrace the whole culture of the Arabians who introduced the religion there. Only a few of them continue to speak the Berber language and then maintain the indigenous culture as well, to the extent that some Christians speak the Arabic language and then they practice most facets of the Arabic culture, including the jalabia, the long robes that they wear, even though they are Christians. Yes, so if you look at this map, may I ask whether you can hear me again? Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good.
Very interesting.
Good. So if you look at this map, the topmost part of the map is where we have been speaking about. That's North Africa. I am not so good with the colors. That's why I'm saying the topmost part of the map. But I just want to, so I wish I had a pointer. Because I'm not good with the colors, if the, I think the pointer would have done the deal for me. But if you can see the inscription too, I want to talk about the Sahara Desert and the Sudanic Belt. And if you check the inscription down, you can see where they have written the desert. That's a very large space, if you can see. The desert. The very first color in the inscription is the desert. And you see that color is very predominant. So that very large space is the desert. Below that large space is what they call the semi-desert. And then under that space is the yellow. The yellow, and then the light green are the savanna region. That is where I have labeled here Sudan. I want to talk about 3 distinctive areas. The first one is the topmost part of the map where the North Africans inhabit. Below the North Africans is the Sahara Desert. Below the Sahara Desert is the grassland. And it is that grassland savanna, or the savanna grassland, that we call Sudan. So I want to talk about the Sahara Desert and the Sudanic Belt. But I want you to take note of these 3 distinct areas. The topmost, North Africa, where I have finished discussing. Under that part is the Sahara Desert. And then below the Sahara Desert is the savanna region, where I have labeled here the Sudanic Belt. I want you to take note of these areas because when I'm talking about the trans-Saharan trade, I'll be talking about how it was done across the Sahara Desert between the people of North Africa and then the people who inhabited the savanna grassland called the Sudan. Okay. Please, do you get this distinction clearly? Can I continue?
Yes, it's okay for me.
All right. Thank you. So where is the Sahara Desert? Is the world's largest desert. It covers about 3.5 million square miles today, and it is mainly inhabited by nomads. About significantly, I just wanted to note that several years ago, about 10,000 years ago, the region was much better than it is. There was no desert there. The climate there was very okay, like any other place. It is as a result of human activities that has led to the Sahara Desert and continue to expand it in scope to the extent that today we are saying it covers about 3.5 million square miles. Yes, so from about 4,000 BC, the area gradually became drier due to human activities. It is important for us to note that from the 1st century, through interactions with the Romans, the camel was introduced into the North Africa, and then this facilitated the trans-Saharan slave trade, the trans-Saharan trade, not necessarily slave trade, the trans-Saharan trade, because the camel was very conducive across the Sahara Desert because it was better than the horse because it could go several days without water. And that was most suitable for the trans-Saharan travels. So historians call the savanna land between the Sahara Desert and then the rainforest zone, the Sudan, where I was telling you that Savannah region, we'll be referring to it as the Sudan, but it is characterized in terms of physical geography as grassland. So the Sudan is bounded to the east by Lake Chad, the west by Senegal, and then to the north by the desert, and the south by the forest, and then the Gulf of Guinea. Some of the states that emerged here, I don't know whether I should ask you, but I am sure you have heard about the ancient kingdom of Ghana, which many people believe that is where modern Ghana got inspiration from and renamed the Gold Coast. That was originally referred to this geographical region by the Europeans as Ghana. So this Sudan belt, the Savannah belt, where states emerged in the early centuries AD, became an inspiration to most post-independent countries. So there is the ancient Ghana there, the ancient Mali kingdom, and then there is Songhai, and then there is Kenambonu, and then other later states that emerged there. So it is very easy for you to Google Western Sudanese states, and then you can find what I am talking about in detail. If you Google Western Sudanese states or ancient Western Sudanese states, they will tell you which of the states emerged first, and so on and so forth. You should note that between these people, I'm talking about those in the Sudan and North Africa, is the famous trans-Saharan trade. Yes, so that is for the Sahara desert and then the Sudan. I now want to talk about the West African Forest Zone. The West African Forest Zone. So after the Sudan, if you come down from that western part of the map, let me go back to that map for the sake of this thing. So if you see where the savanna grassland is, after the savanna grassland, as you drop down, you are coming to the tropical rainforest. So we are still on the western part of the map. We are not coming towards the central and the eastern, and then probably the southern tip down there yet. So the western part of the north of the map, on top is North Africa, below is the Sahara Desert that stretches across to Central Africa and East Africa, but I'm still on the western part. So if you drop down the western part, you are coming to the Sudan or the Savannah region. And then if you drop further down, you are coming to the tropical rainforest zone. And then if you drop further down the rainforest zone, then you are dropping into the Gulf of Guinea, the Atlantic Ocean, where the famous legitimate and later slave trade took place. So let me go back to the West African Forest Zone. So having said that, if you look at this map, we say the West African Forest Zone stretches about 3,000 miles from Sierra Leone to Cameroon, with southern Ghana somewhere in the center. And if you can see this map, sorry, I don't have a pointer, but if you are still looking at the western part of the map, you see where Sierra Leone is. And if you are dropping down from that place, you will get to where Cameroon is. But if you can see Ghana, I am saying that Ghana somehow divides the distance from Sierra Leone to Cameroon in that forest zone equally. And it is important to note that the current state of Ghana, the northern part of Ghana is part of the savannah or the Sudan belt that I have finished describing. If you drop further south, you are coming to the forest zone that I am going to describe. And then if you drop further south in Ghana here, you are getting to the Gulf of Guinea. So Ghana gives us all these three geographical distinctions that I have mentioned. So if you look at the map of Ghana alone, just divide it into two. Up is the savannah region, down is the forest region across Africa, and then further down is the Atlantic Ocean. But I have mentioned in this second bullet that until about 10,000 AD, habitation in the forest zone was relatively difficult. Because I am not getting the feedback from you enough to interact like I would have wished, maybe I should be answering the questions that I am asking. But I had wanted to know whether you can guess why habitation in the forest zone was relatively difficult until about 1000 AD. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes,
but
so
it's only me responding, so I don't know if the others are there hearing.
Yes, I'm here too.
Okay.
Please, if you can hear me, I just want to verify whether you can guess why habitation in the forest zone was relatively late and only happened somewhere from around 1000 AD. At least it will help me to know that I am not speaking to myself alone.
Yeah, Doc, could it be that people didn't know or learn how to live in a forest, that the hunters and gatherers, they were more living in the savannah, but really living in the bush, in the jungle, that we hardly had civilizations. Could that be the reason, that there were no civilizations before that time, that, you know, no communities in the forest, and also therefore also the know-how how to set up a community in the forest and how to survive in the forest?
Okay, thank you. Please, who just spoke?
Lisbeth spoke. I spoke.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So what about the rest? Please, can you share opinion on why you think habitation in the forest zone was relatively late? Hello, if I may, please, is Kenneth here? Please, is Kenneth here?
Yes, I'm here, doctor, but I'm driving in the car and I'm struggling to unmute my Zoom session. Sorry. But no problem, because I was hoping I will be at home in time. But I managed to unmute, and thank you for already doing all the introductions. Yeah, I think also that in the most communities were built by agricultural civilizations, and in the forest structure at that moment were more people doing the hunter-gathering types of civilization, and then it's a little bit more difficult to build these formal structures, which were easier done when people had more of the agricultural structures. So then, and also, I think from a trade, so the forest was more difficult. So that's what I was actually thinking.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, so if I may continue, thank you very much, those who just spoke about the reasons why the forest zone was relatively late in terms of habitation. And it is exactly what you have said. So it took the discovery of iron to enable man get the requisite equipment to subdue the forest environment to live in that space. So if you check the development or the emergence of states in Africa in earliest times, you will notice that most of the earlier states developed outside the forest zone. And then most of the great states, such as Asante, that emerged in the forest zone are later day saints. They emerged quite late because human habitation had to wait until the discovery of iron before they could make implements or the equipment that will enable man to subdue the forest environment. That was great. Thank you so much. At least I know we are on the same page. So some of the states that emerged in this West African forest zone include Oyo, Dahomey, Benin, Asante, Adanse, Achem, Dentra, and many others that those of you who have been exposed to the late part of the transatlantic slave trade, most of the slaves came from these relatively later day states, which emerged quite late because of the environment. And when the transatlantic slave trade was ending, that it provided an impetus for them to continue to find people to sell into slavery. What do you think was the single most important advantage that states in this region had by the 15th century? I've written here double trade benefits. I don't know whether I should give you the opportunity to guess what I mean by double trade benefits. So people in the forest zone from the 15th century, when the Europeans had come to the coast of the African continent, had an advantage because they had double trade, what I have called a double trade benefits. What is that double trade benefits?
Yes, I've heard the question, but I don't know if it's a question to us or maybe the lecturer is no more there.
I am here. Yeah,
I
asked whether you see, can you see my slides?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so if you see the second bullet there, I'm saying, what do you think was the single most important advantage that states in the forest zone of Africa had by the 15th century? And I've answered that question by saying double trade benefits.
Ah, okay, I see.
What do I mean by double trade benefits? And I gave a clue. I gave a clue that by the 15th century, that is when the Europeans had settled along the coast of Africa. So it gave the people who lived in the forest zone double trade benefits. And I was talking about trans-Saharan trade across the Sahara Desert between the people in the Sudan and then North Africa. So if you remember, when I was talking about the map, I said those on top are North Africans. Below the North Africans is the Sahara Desert. And then below the Sahara Desert are the people of the Sudan. And then below the Sudan is the West African Forest Zone, where we are talking about now. Below the West African Forest Zone is the coast, the Gulf of Guinea, where the Europeans came to settle. So when the Europeans came, those in the forest became middlemen in the trade because they benefited from the trade with the Europeans along the Gulf of Guinea, the coast of Africa. And then on top was the people of the Sudan in the Savannah region, who were also trading with North Africans across the Sahara, what we call the trans-Saharan trade. So the people in the forest zone benefited from the trans-Saharan trade, and then they still benefited from the European trade that was coming from below or further south. I don't know whether you get this. If you don't have the geographical features that I had already spoken about, it will be very difficult to appreciate what I am appreciating now.
Yes, I see. Yes, it's a bit difficult, but I think I can understand it by going through the stuff after to find out more.
All right.
Yes, but I can appreciate for the moment a bit.
So let me talk about East and Central Africa. So now when we go to the east, we are going towards the center of Africa, where we call Central Africa, with countries like Congo, Zaire, Angola, Gabon. I do not pretend to be mentioning all the states that are in each region. Like I told you before, I'm just interested in getting you to have a pictorial geography of the African continent, not necessarily to tell you that a country belongs to this place and doesn't belong to that other place. If you go to the UN scheme of things, there are a lot of Central African countries that has been categorized as Eastern African countries. So I'm not trying to do any strict dichotomy among these states, that this one is here and that one is there. I'm just trying to get us to have a pictorial geography of the African continent to aid our discussions. So in East Africa too, I am mentioning Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda. I haven't even mentioned Ethiopia, that is in the Horn. That is at the extreme end of the Horn towards the east. Yes, so like most of East Africa, unlike Central Africa, has mild climates. And then some of the kingdoms that emerged here, these ones again, if you just Google these kingdoms, you know when they started and what they stood for in those era. Yes, so Congo, Lunda, Luba, Uba, Buganda, Toro, Nkore. I am not also exhaustive of all the states that emerged in this central and eastern part of the African continent. I am just bringing the map here again so that you just see where I am talking about. If you can see where Chad is, if you can see where Central African Republic is, where Uganda is, where Ethiopia is, Eritrea, Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, Democratic Republic of Congo. That's the region I am talking about. And I spoke about the overlap because you see Zambia there. Some people consider it as a Southern African country. Others think it's a Central African country. So we are not doing any strict dichotomy. We just want to have a pictorial view of these African countries. So this is typically the East African map that includes all the other islands in the East African coast. Yeah, this is also the Central African map where you can see even Sudan is mentioned here. But when I was talking about North Africa, you saw Sudan there too. That's why I was encouraging you to overlook the overlaps. Yes, there is something important about Southern Africa that I have to lay emphasis because it is a relatively complex region. Just a moment. Sorry, I had to sip some water. Yes, so I am mentioning Southern Africa here, and like I did for the other sub-regions, the countries here may include Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and South Africa itself. But aside from knowing that these are the countries that are in South Africa, it is important for you to take note that Lesotho is completely encircled by South Africa. You can see Lesotho there. So Lesotho is an independent country within a country. Aside from that, the human geographic characteristic of South Africa in particular that led to the apartheid policy from 1948 makes it very significant, and it is important that I let you appreciate that. So at the tip of the continent down there, it's Southern Africa, and particularly South Africa. I want to talk about South Africa, the human geography of South Africa, because it is that human geographical situation that led to racial segregation in that region that has been referred to as apartheid from 1948. So it had enough resources, but did not have forest resources. They did not have enough rain to grow crops. So the most popular economic activity there was animal rearing, particularly cattle rearing. So if you you read about the apartheid system in South Africa, and they are talking about the indigenous people and then the foreigners who eventually took lands from the indigenous people. It was because even the foreigners used the land to rear cattle, and they needed as much land as possible because at every point in time when they gave birth to their children did not work on their parents' farms. They had to also go and establish their own cattle plantations. So they continued to seek the land big enough to help them graze their cattle. So the indigenous people in this South African region was the Khoi, the San, and the Bantu. So in some of the literature, you see Khoisan. When they say Khoisan, they are referring to two different group of people, the Khoi and then the San. But it is important for us to note that both the Khoi and the San lived along the coast of South Africa. And then when you move towards the interior of South Africa, you find variants of the Bantu ethnic groups. It's a very large ethnic group that transcends subcontinents. So you find Bantu in Central Africa, you find the Bantu in Southern Africa, and then you find the Bantu in Eastern Africa. So the Bantu are towards the interior. Along the coast, the indigenous groups are the Khoi and the San. But as you move to the interior, you meet these different Bantu ethnic groups who transcended sub-regional boundaries in Africa here. So like every other space, the Portuguese were the first to see the South African region. By 1498, the Portuguese had explored and reached the Southern African area, but they did not settle. It was the Dutch who settled in that region from 1652, established military plantations there. Let me elaborate on this story a little bit. So the Europeans used this Southern African coast as an alternative route to their East Indian possessions in Asia. So when the Dutch were en route to their East Indian possessions, please, is someone drawing my attention to something?
No, Doc. Why are you asking that?
Yeah, my screen, the Zoom template has covered my screen, so I thought someone might
Could
have
it be
clicked on
that
it.
some people are trying to get into the Zoom meeting? Because right now you're the only host. There's no co-host, so it could be that.
Oh yes.
Some people, yeah.
Kenneth is here. Kenneth is here. Okay.
Yes, and you can kindly make one of us co-hosts so that we can also do the
admission.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I'll do that immediately. So who should I make the co-host? Because I made Lisbeth the co-host. I don't know why that status has changed.
It has changed because I was thrown out, in and out. So at some point I left, but now you can make me co-host again. I think the network is stable now. I'm using a different SIM card.
Great. So I've made you co-host again.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. So from 1652, the Dutch established a rest stop. I'm calling something a rest stop, like en route to their East Indian possessions. They decided to create a place where they will stop and rest on the coast of Southern Africa from 1652. So from that 1652, the military people were encouraged to establish cattle plantations. Cattle plantations because I've already mentioned that the region was mostly suitable for cattle rearing. So the military people were encouraged, although they did not do much, from 1652 to establish cattle plantations on the coast, along the coast of the Southern African region, so that whenever they are going to their East Indian possession, they will stop there and have rest, live a little while, and continue. But these military people did not do as much. So ordinary Dutch citizens were brought to the region to do these plantations. Along the line, a few French joined them to do these plantations. And I want to fast forward from 1795, when Napoleon Bonaparte of France conquered the Netherlands in Europe. The British, who were economic rivals of the French at that time, felt if the French took over the Dutch possession in that coast, they will not allow the British to use that route to their East Indian possessions. So the British quickly came and occupied the Cape Colony. The South African coastal colony is referred to as the Cape Colony. So the British came and occupied the Cape Colony in 1795, when Napoleon defeated the Dutch in Europe. And then they gave it back to the Dutch in 1803. The British came back again in 1806. And then in 1814, the Dutch sold their Cape Colony possession to the British. And it is important for you to note that this particular phenomenon was not peculiar to this Southern African region alone. In West Africa, in East Africa, various European countries sold their possessions to the eventual colonizers. So, for instance, in Ghana here, the Danes, the Dutch, and other European groups who established possessions here in Ghana eventually sold them to the British. Yeah, so it is not something peculiar to this region. But I just want you to, I am building up to how the white population gained roots in South Africa that will eventually lead to racial segregation in that region from 1948. So, but from 1814, the British became official colonizers of the region. The way they colonized the region along the coast of South Africa did not impress the Dutch cattle plantation owners, because, you know, this period has also coincided with the time where the British were spearheading the abolition of slave trade. And eventually, by 1833, the British also abolished slavery in all its territories globally. So these were actions that were detrimental to the labor that the Dutch colonizers used for their plantations in that region, because they were using the indigenous people to work on these plantations. So the fact that the British, who had taken over the colony, discouraged such activities was unpleasant to the Dutch plantation owners, who were majority in terms of foreign habitation in that region, or European habitation in that region. So these Dutch plantation owners gradually moved inwards towards the interior of South Africa to the Bantu regions, and were taking their lands gradually. So initially, this brought conflict between the indigenous African groups and then the Dutch plantation owners. But there is something that we call the Great Trek. I don't think I am going to treat that in this course, but the Great Trek was characterized by Dutch plantation or Dutch citizens leaving the Cape Colony and then going to establish Dutch states in the interior of Southern Africa. If I continue to give details, I may be digressing so much and could end up confusing you, because someone may ask, why will they leave the Cape and go to the interior? But if you have questions of that nature, just keep them. It will give me the opportunity to elaborate. But for now, let me go straight to the point. So the Dutch plantation owners eventually were unhappy with British colonial rule in the coast of South Africa and moved to the interior to establish Dutch states. Eventually, where they established those Dutch states, from the 1860s, there were discoveries of rich mineral resources there, and it led to what we call the British Boer Wars. This one, again, you can take note of it so that I don't digress a little bit. I want to arrive quickly at how we got the different racial groups that led to racial segregation in this region. So when I mention the Boers, I'm referring to the Dutch plantation owners. So when the Boers went to the interior of Southern Africa and established their plantations there, it's from 1860, the discovery of minerals there led to the British, who were in the Cape Colony, that is the coastal part of the region, clashed with the Boers and then eventually defeated them towards the end of that 19th century, and then unified South Africa. So to some extent, by 1910, there was a semi-independent unified South Africa that was not fully a British colony, that organized elections, but essentially dominated by foreigners. And for that matter, the majority Dutch who owned plantations there. So it was this system of administrators. So the British became administrators, the Boers were farmers, and then the indigenous Africans were the servants on the farms of the Boers. And then the Boers, being disgruntled by the administration of the British, established states. Then these Boer states clashed with the British administration and became a unified South Africa. And this unified South African politics was dominated by majority Dutch whites who ruled South Africa, because the indigenous people were even denied the right to vote. So they did not have right to contest. So these Dutch politicians campaigned on what they called racial purity, that they were going to eventually sanitize the system in South Africa, where there will be strict racial segregation to ensure what they call racial purity. It was one of these Dutch-dominated governments led by D.F. Malan, who in 1948 won elections and declared apartheid as an official policy that prescribed the distinction among the various racial groups in Africa, in Southern Africa. end of this session. I know I have left so many gaps that you may need filling in. So if I may pause here and take some questions. If we have time, we can continue. Otherwise, I think since we are very few, we can leave it here so that we continue another time with a larger group. Thank you.
Thank you too, Doc. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question or comment?
It's okay for me, thank you. We will be celebrating the, how do you call it? Abolition of slavery.
Yeah,
Monday.
Emancipation
Yes.
Day. You can also call it Emancipation Day.
Emancipation, yes, as we call it, yes. So most of us here in Suriname are celebrating today with the schools and the workplaces.
Kenneth, I also see your microphone came on.
Yeah, I was just checking if the home equipment was fine. But yes, I don't have any specific questions at the moment because it was such a doctor. You took you covered a very broad topic of all the different regions, and only thing I was wondering about. You mentioned Ethiopia sometime be considered east in the Horn of Africa, so could also be considered north. Is there a specific reason why the coverage and also the history of Ethiopia is, I call it, like a little bit separate from the other sub-regions you mentioned?
Okay, thank you. I don't think Ethiopia is very, very, very much East Africa because it is in that horn. It is inside that horn at the easternmost part of the African map. I rather mention Sudan because if you notice when I was showing the map of North Africa alone, you saw Sudan there. Let me quickly, I think that was the beginning of the class. I don't know how early you joined. If you look at this North African map, you see that there is Sudan there. Then somewhere when I was speaking about East Africa again, then there was Sudan. So I was just mentioning that overlap. And I said that is insignificant. You should not be interested in which country is where. We are just, but I just want you to have a broad geographical picture of the African continent. But Ethiopia unambiguously is in that horn, and very much Eastern Africa. There is no doubt about that. You can't put Ethiopia in Southern Africa or Central Africa or North Africa. It is very much Eastern Africa.
Okay, that's how I put it then. Yeah. Because from a historic point of view, of course, Egypt and Sudan have already like a part of this same history. But I also understood that from one of the other articles we had before, that also in the past, Egypt was already also trading with some kingdoms of communities in the region of the Horn of Africa. So that's why I in my mind, everything was just the same region, being like Northeast Africa. So both Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, I would consider all in the same area. But yeah, I can see the distinction that you make between the different regions you mentioned during the slide deck. Yeah.
Doc, I also have a question. I wonder about the cultural identity. Do these regions, do you also notice there's a particular cultural identity for the people in the southern part of Africa, for the people in the western part of Africa, for the people in the eastern part of Africa? Do you see a cultural identity for their region? And if so, are people aware of that?
Sorry, I did not unmute and I was talking. I wanted to verify whether you are asking whether there is a peculiar cultural identity for each sub-region.
Yes, exactly. And if the inhabitants of that particular region are aware of that specific culture, if they, I know here in Ghana, we always, flash with the ECOWAS passport, and that gives us the feeling that, we're part of the ECOWAS identity. I don't know if there is an ECOWAS identity. But yeah, do you see a cultural identity for each sub-region?
Lisbeth, are you in Ghana?
Yes, I'm in Ghana, yes.
Oh, I see. I see. So if you talk about peculiar cultural identity, this one is very much dictated by the influx of other culture to the regions. So this one, it has to do with various facets of culture. So the cultural identity of the different groups is very much dictated by who they have interacted with outside of the regular group. So when I mentioned North Africa, for instance, they are very much Islamized and Arabized because of that peculiar situation they've had with the introduction of Islam and Arabic culture in that region. If you talk about how West Africa has been influenced in terms of its culture, the indigenous culture is almost homogeneous across board with very slight distinctions, but depending on who colonized where, the people are very much so. If in terms of language, in terms of religion, in terms of they are very much influenced by their colonial masters, so to speak. That's sometimes the term that we use, which I find a misnomer. Yes, so the culture of the people is seemingly homogeneous, and it is only distinguished by the foreign culture that made incursions into the area. So that such foreign culture include language, religion, and other factors.
If you,
okay, I get it. Yes.
On this topic, interesting, because if you consider the languages, the communities itself, can you also then identify specific language groups or language families which might not be in sync with the north, south, east, west, central division, but they have still some type of coherence among each other? Because I did understood that there were like over 1,000 different languages spoken over the whole continent, but I would imagine that there's like certain language groups which are related, which makes some of the languages related to each other. is there not like a sense of identity based on the different languages groups which exist or language families?
Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello?
Yes, Doc. Did you get the question coming from Kenneth?
No, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try again. I'll try again. Because you mentioned it came to the topic when Lisbeth asked the questions on identity, also to languages, but then more the European and Western languages. But I was wondering also, because there are also, of course, the original African languages still being spoken, and there are a lot of them, but sometimes they belong to certain language groups or language families. Is there also some identity around the original African languages which are spoken?
Yes. There are broad language groups, and in fact, if we become interested in this area where I am not necessarily an expert, there are broad language groups such as the GAR, G-U-R, such as the Kwa, K-W-A. There are broad, so the Bantu, for instance, that I mentioned, they transcend sub-regional boundaries. So not just countries, but they are found in different countries across different sub-regions in East Africa, in Central Africa, and then in Southern Africa. So there are indigenous unified people. There are indigenous people who are unified by other forms of culture because they migrated probably from the same place and then spread to other parts of the continent, or they have some cultural links that might have emerged somewhere and maybe re-emerged elsewhere else. Yeah, so not just the influence of the foreign culture, and not just language. When I talk about foreign culture, it is not just about language. It has to do with other factors, including religion. So it is not just language, but among the indigenous people too, yeah, there are these similarities in terms of culture where we know that all these people migrated from here. So because of that, they seem to have, if Lisbeth, you are, which part of Ghana are you? So that I can do a typical example here for you.
Yes, I'm in the Greater Accra region. I live in Pram Pram.
Okay.
And but I've lived the first 5 years. I lived in Accra.
Okay. Okay. So somehow you are so okay in the Accra region. I'm not so conversant as in the northern part of Ghana, but I can still hazard. You hear they call some people Ga. They call some people Adangbe.
Yes, exactly. Yes, these are the local languages,
exactly.
And a lot of the people in Pram Pram speak Dangme and Ga. Yes.
Yeah. So those language, the Ga and the Dangbe, are mutually intelligible. You understand? And as
no,
you
I
are
don't
there,
understand. What do you mean by that?
Like they come from a common root.
Oh, okay.
So it makes them like they understand bits and pieces of each other.
Okay, yes.
So for instance, I am from one part of northern Ghana. My wife is from another part of northern Ghana. I speak Nankane. My wife speaks Prafra. But when she speaks and I also speak, we understand each other perfectly. Meanwhile, it is not the same language, but it's from the same source.
Yes.
That's what I mean by mutually intelligible.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
I get it now.
So
Yes.
there are even broader versions of language classifications that make a group of people related to one or the other languages, and that's what that aspect of culture that I was that aspect of culture that maybe Kenneth was trying to put across.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good. That's correct. Yeah, yeah. I was looking for that aspect also on the African continent, so that there were also like broader communities across even states.
Yes, like the Bantu.
Yes, like Bantu, for instance. Yes,
Like the Akan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Akan, there are more than 50% of the people who are in Ghana. Some of them are in Togo. Some of them are in Cote d'Ivoire. Yeah, so broader communities, linguistics, who are linguistically related to each other.
So, Doc, is Akan then also a root? Is that also a root for the language, for all the Akan language? Is that the root of all these different Akan languages?
Yes, please.
Okay. So they all understand each other.
Not so if you are conversant with the Ghanaian languages that they study in their Akan, they will say Asante tree,
Yes, yes.
Kwauchi, Equiapim tree.
Yes, yes.
So you see, you will not understand everything, but it is mutually intelligible. You understand each other to a very large extent.
Okay. Yeah.
But certain things are said differently, and I think this has global resemblance. I'm sure
Yes.
this thing about languages, it will be in Europe, it will be in America. It's not just here. Because
yeah, I think
recently,
you can compare it to Dutch and German.
Okay.
The languages are very much close to each other, and you can understand bits and pieces of it. Yeah.
All right. Is it?
Yes, Doc.
Is it Shahela Winkler who cannot speak, whose microphone does not allow?
She said that she's in a train. She's on a train ride, and therefore she cannot speak. She can only listen.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. So I think we can close if there are no further questions and remarks. Do we also have you as a lecturer coming Tuesday?
Yes, I suggest we should be meeting on Tuesday because the Friday is not a good day for me. Most of the Fridays I travel.
Okay, so you only want us to meet on Tuesdays. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so you're the only lecturer for this block?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Because I will speak for myself now. I'm not sure if I speak for the whole class, but for me, it's still a bit unclear what we're going to learn in this second block. I've seen a write-up one time, but I don't know what we have finalized on. And so I was just wondering what block 2 is about. So, and if we're also gonna hear from, if we get feedback on our writings, we've done a final paper in the first block, and we didn't hear how we have done and whether or not we didn't get any results yet.
Okay. Honestly, when I finish with you today, I'll get back to the coordinators. First of all, I would wish that if they have not shared the course outline, I can share on your platform because I am there now.
Yes.
Then, in fact, I could not complete the course outline because I am not aware of the mode of assessment that is acceptable on this program.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so there are a few questions that I asked in that course, that draft course outline that I sent to one of the coordinators who was mentioned. And I did not get feedback. I just, I guess they will put finality on that and then they will share. Otherwise, if they give me the opportunity, I'll just exclude those aspects where I did not have answers, such as what is the mode of assessment? When can I assess you? What can I assess you on? There were a few questions that I needed responses from the coordinators before I could put finality on the course outline. So maybe as I try to get clarity on those things, I may find answers to some of the questions you are asking now. But for now, I am actually very gray. I don't know as much as maybe you people do because you were on this program last semester. So at least you know the trajectory up to this point.
Yeah, sure. That's fine, Doc. I will also urge Marvin to let us know what we can expect in block 2. And then we will meet you on Tuesday. Do you want to stay in our WhatsApp group throughout the block, or was there a particular
I didn't get that. Have you completed the statement?
Yeah, no, not really. I was asking if you want to stay in our WhatsApp group throughout the block, or was there a particular reason why you wanted to join us and meet us there, and then also go out of the WhatsApp group again? Or is it the purpose? I didn't understand the purpose of it. So is the purpose of you having contact with us students, or also having discussions there, sharing material?
In fact, I was asked to interact with you before we meet. And
okay.
I thought it was a normal routine.
No, not really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so far, I have been the contact person for the lecturers. And usually the communication runs through me. But if you do want to have direct contact with us, with all of us, then I think it's fine. I mean, I don't have any objections.
Not necessarily. Since you always be there to communicate whatever I have to the class, I think it is better I stay out of the class to allow you to do your discussions that may not concern me.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Okay, sure. Then it's clear for me. Yes, I'm the class representative together with Kenneth. So you've met both of us now. And yeah, so the communication can run through both of us. And then I had another final thing to ask. I think that was, oh yes, did you have any reading material for us? Some of us also want to read ahead. So if you have reading material that comes up later on, you can already share it with us, because some of us, we only have the weekend to, to do our readings.
Yes, we discussed that reading material thing at length, and I told that the stylist, for every theme, I have told the reading material that you require, and then they said they were going to make their library available to you so that you can access some of the reading materials that I have delineated on the course outline. I didn't know that you have not even received the course outline yet.
Yes, I haven't received anything. I don't know if the others have received something
No, I have
through the
not.
Zoom account.
I have
I
not
haven't
received.
received anything. I haven't, and I'm also not sure if we get access to libraries. So that's an online library from probably the university in Suriname.
No, but if you could check, Doctor, with the people where we can find the articles, because last block it took some effort to find or collect all the articles ourselves, and would help if somebody could point us where to download or where to read some of the articles, or which library link we can use. Yeah, like Elizabeth said, we like to read a little bit up front. Some people like to read ahead, because the time between the lectures was often very short. So if you have any of the material, and also the course outline for this block, because I didn't receive one also.
I have all the reading material, but unfortunately, they are in hard copies.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah, so maybe I will discuss with my teaching assistant how he can try to scan some of them, and then we may share.
Yeah.
But I discussed this with the coordinator, and the coordinator said they were going to look for options for you. And I've discussed this with my university librarian. And my university librarian said I've shared my course outline with the university librarian to try to look for soft copy versions of what I have prescribed there so that I can share. So I knew you guys had the course outline. In fact, if you get a course outline, to give you a clue of what we are discussing now. So it's important that as soon as possible, you get a course outline, and then maybe you ask further questions. You can let me be on the platform for a while, so until you get the course outline. So you ask me specific questions, and then we will know exactly what we should do going forward before we meet next week, Tuesday.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that, Doc. I think that's also wise to do if you stay on the platform until we have all the information that we need, because the coordinators haven't discussed anything with us. The only person that came to us to tell us that we're going to have another class was Marvin. And I know that Marvin doesn't know necessarily the substance, not necessarily the course outlines and things like that. I don't know what he said about that earlier on when I was going on and offline. I don't know if he said anything about it, but we as a class, we haven't received anything from coordination.
All right, so I'll have that discussions with them immediately after this, and then I think we will try to find a way before our next meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Yes, yes, sounds good. Then I wish you a very nice weekend. I think we can round up now.
Thank you so much.
It was nice to meet you. Thank you for the lecture. I was a little bit late because I was traveling from work back to home and stuff like that, but I'm happy I could catch most of it. So thank you also from my side.
Yeah, thank you too. If it were possible to all show our videos like Kenneth has done, so we get to see each other, because we are never going to meet physically. We are going to be meeting here, and I'm happy.
Oh, don't say that. We could meet physically.
Yes, you both are in Ghana, that's true. But no, I'm in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, so for me it's a little bit more difficult, Doctor. But yes.
Yeah, as for Lisbeth, yes, we could meet physically. Next week I'll be in Accra, but I'm not sure I'll come to Pram Pram.
Sure. I tried to put on the video, but it's not working on my phone.
Okay.
But anyway, I have my picture there. I think you can see the picture of,
yeah. We can see
my
your
account.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So
then yeah.
next time when we meet, we may have to introduce ourselves and then get to know who is speaking and from where.
Yes.
So we can interact better.
Sure. Yes.
I'll say thank you and till next Tuesday. And I will be on time, definitely. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
So will you end the
Yes,
session?
I will be the last person. I will end it. Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
That's fine.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.